The clock on the wall ticked past 9, its sound a soft, steady beat in the quiet of the study. For Dr. Eris Thorne, this was usually the best time of his day. The university was closed, his lectures were finished, and the house was settled. This was his time to read, to think, to get lost in the complex and beautiful world of molecules and reactions that had been his life's work. But tonight, the silence felt different. It felt heavy. He looked across the room at his 7-year-old daughter, Ilara. She was curled up in the big armchair, a book on her lap, but she wasn't reading. She was just staring into space, her small forehead wrinkled with a worry that seemed too old for her face. This had been going on for a week. The lively, chatty girl who usually filled the house with stories about her day had become quiet and withdrawn. "Ilara?" Eris said, his voice gentle. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Ilara looked up, her big brown eyes meeting his. She hesitated, twisting the corner of her book. "Papa," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "We started a new unit in school today. About science." Eris felt a flicker of pride. "Science? That's wonderful. That's Papa's favorite thing." But Ilara's face didn't light up. Instead, her chin trembled slightly. "It was about materials, wood and metal and plastic. The teacher was using big words I didn't know. And she said there's a big test at the end of the month." A single tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. "I don't think I'm smart enough for science, Papa. It's scary." The words hit Eris like a physical blow. "I'm not smart enough for science." To him, this was like saying she couldn't breathe air. He felt a surge of frustration, not at her, but at a system that could make something so wonderful feel so intimidating to a child. He got up from his desk and walked over to her, the old floorboards creaking under his feet. He knelt in front of her chair so their eyes were level. "Oh, my little star," he said, using his special name for her. "Listen to me. Science isn't about being smart. Not in the way you think. It's about being curious. It's about asking questions. It's the story of how our world works. And you," he said, tapping her nose gently, "are the most curious person I know." She gave him a small, watery smile, but the fear was still in her eyes. He could see it. It was the same look he saw sometimes in the first-year university students who were terrified of failing his class. He looked around his study. It was a room filled with knowledge, textbooks with dense, complicated language, academic journals filled with graphs and equations that looked like secret codes. These were his tools, but to his little girl they probably looked like walls, tall, impossible to climb, and in that moment, an idea was born. It didn't arrive with a bang, but quietly, like the first drop of rain before a storm. It was a simple, clear thought. If the classroom is scary, then we'll make a different classroom. A safer one. He stood up, his knees cracking a little. "Wait here," he said, a new energy in his voice. He went to his desk and rummaged through a drawer, pushing aside old pens and paper clips until he found what he was looking for. It was a brand new notebook. It had a soft, dark blue cover, the color of the sky just after the sun has set. It was completely blank. He brought it back to Ilara. "This," he announced, holding it up, "is our new project. Just for you and me." She looked at it, curious. "What is it?" "It's a special bedtime book," Eris said. "But not a story about princesses or dragons?" "Well, maybe there will be dragons in a way. This is a book about the secret rules of the universe. We're going to learn one secret every night, right here, just before you go to sleep. One small, amazing fact about chemistry. No big words, no tests. Just you, me, and the magic hiding in everyday life." Ilara's eyes widened. "One fact, every night. Every single night," Eris promised. "Until we fill this book." He opened the notebook to the first crisp white page. He picked up his favorite pen, the one that wrote in a deep, dark blue ink. At the top of the page, he wrote in his neat, precise handwriting, 100 chemistry facts, a gentle bedtime journey. He showed it to her. 300 nights of wonder. "What do you think?" For the first time that week, he saw the real Ilara return. The worry vanished from her face, replaced by a look of pure, excited anticipation. The spark was back. "What's the first fact?" she asked, her voice now full of its usual life. Eris smiled. He had already thought of it. It had to be perfect. It couldn't be about atoms or the periodic table. It had to be about something she knew, something she loved. "Fact number 1, he said, his voice dropping to a storytelling whisper. He closed his eyes for a second, as if pulling the fact from the air itself. You know when Mommy is baking your favorite cookies and the whole house smells like vanilla? Ilara nodded, her eyes locked on him. That amazing sweet smell. Eris continued. That's not just a smell. It's a tiny, tiny molecule, a little packet of scent called vanillin. It's so small that millions of them float off the vanilla and into the air, and they travel all the way to your nose. So, when you smell those cookies, you are actually catching thousands of these invisible vanilla molecules. Ilara's mouth fell open. She looked towards the kitchen as if she could see the molecules dancing in the air. Really? Invisible smell molecules? Really, Eris said. Chemistry is the reason your favorite things smell like your favorite things. It's the reason the world has color and flavor. It's not scary. It's the reason for everything. He wrote in the notebook. Fact number 1. The smell of vanilla comes from tiny, invisible molecules called vanillin that fly through the air into your nose. He showed it to her, and she traced the word vanillin with her finger. That's not scary at all, she whispered. No, Eris agreed, his heart feeling fuller than it had in weeks. It's not. He tucked her into bed a little while later, the blue notebook placed proudly on her bedside table. As he turned off the light, she was still smiling. Back in his study, Eris looked at the academic papers on his desk. They suddenly seemed less important. He had spent his life talking to other scientists, using a language that only they understood. He had been trying to add one tiny brick to the giant wall of human knowledge. But tonight he realized he had been ignoring the most important audience of all, the next generation. The future scientists, artists, and thinkers who would only love science if someone first made them see the magic in it. He had started this project for Ilara, to calm her fears. But as he sat in the quiet of his study, he felt a strange new sense of purpose. This gentle bedtime journey wasn't just for her anymore. It was for him too. It was a chance to remember why he had fallen in love with chemistry in the first place, not because of the complex equations, but because of the simple, breathtaking wonder of it all. The blue notebook was no longer just a notebook. It had become a kind of magic key. It lived on Ilara's bedside table, and every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world outside her window turned a soft purple, she would look at it with a quiet sense of excitement. The fear that had once lived in her stomach before bedtime was gone, replaced by a bubbling curiosity. What tiny secret of the universe would she and her papa unlock tonight? For Eris, the walk from his study to her bedroom had also changed. It was no longer just a father putting his daughter to bed. It felt more like a scientist and his most important research partner were about to begin a new experiment. He found himself thinking about the next fact throughout the day, turning it over in his mind, stripping away the complicated language until only the pure, simple wonder remained. Night 2 arrived. Eris came in and sat on the edge of her bed. Ilara immediately pushed herself up, her eyes bright. "Papa, is it time? What's the fact?" He laughed, picking up the blue notebook. "So eager. I like it." "Okay, close your eyes." She squeezed her eyes shut, a smile playing on her lips. "Think about lunchtime today," Eris began, his voice soft. "You had an apple, a nice shiny red one. And remember what Mommy did? She cut it into slices for me," Ilara said, her eyes still closed. "Exactly. And what happened to those beautiful white slices after they sat on your plate for a while?" Ilara's nose scrunched up as she thought. They turned all brown and yucky." "Right," Eris said. "Now open your eyes. Fact number 2 is all about that." He opened the notebook to the second page. "This is a story about a little hero and some bullies with oxygen." Ilara giggled. "Oxygen? Like the air we breathe?" "That's the one," Eris said. "But in our story, oxygen is a bit of a troublemaker. You see, inside the apple's cells, there's a little hero, a protector, named vitamin C. As long as vitamin C is there, the oxygen in the air can't cause any problems. But when you cut the apple, you break open the cells, and the vitamin C, which is a bit fragile, gets destroyed." He drew a little stick figure hero on the page and then some frowny-faced O-shapes. "So, once the hero is gone," he continued, "the oxygen bullies rush in. They crash into another thing in the apple, and that causes a chemical reaction. That reaction is what makes the apple turn brown. It's not yucky. It's just the apple's way of saying it's been in a little fight with the air. Ilara looked completely fascinated. So, if we wanted to save the apple, we'd have to protect the vitamin C hero? Or keep the oxygen bullies away, Eris said, impressed. And guess what? We can. If you squeeze a little lemon juice on the apple slices, the vitamin C in the lemon juice becomes the new hero and protects the apple. See, chemistry isn't just about knowing things, it's about solving little problems. He wrote in the book. Fact number 2. Cut apples turn brown because oxygen in the air reacts with them when their protective vitamin C is gone. Lemon juice, full of vitamin C, can save them. This pattern continued night after night. The facts became the rhythm of their lives. Night 3 was about why soap makes bubbles. Eris didn't talk about surface tension and hydrophilic ends. He talked about water molecules holding hands very tightly, and soap molecules coming in and politely asking some of them to let go and form a stretchy round team, a bubble. Night 4 was about the glow of fireflies. He described it as a cool light made inside the firefly's body when two special chemicals shake hands, a light that doesn't need a bulb or a wire, just chemistry. Ilara spent the next day pretending her teddy bear had a chemical light inside him. The most wonderful change, however, wasn't happening just in the bedroom. It was spilling out into their whole world. Eris began to see the evidence everywhere. One Saturday morning, they were walking through the grocery store. Ilara, sitting in the cart, pointed up at the long, colorful lights in the ceiling. "Papa, look, the lights! Are they having a chemical reaction like the fireflies?" Eris stopped, a box of cereal in his hand. He looked at the lights, and for a moment, he didn't see just store fixtures. He saw what she saw. Tubes filled with potential. "Not exactly the same, but a very cool one," he said, his voice low so as not to disturb other shoppers. "You see those lights? They're called neon lights, but they can be different colors. Inside the tube, there's a special kind of air, a gas. When we send electricity through it, the gas gets excited and gives off light. A different gas makes a different color. It's like a silent, electric firework trapped in a glass tube." Ilara stared at the lights, her head tilted. "So, the red one is a different gas than the white one?" "Exactly, my smart girl," Eris said, his heart swelling with a pride far deeper than when a student aced a difficult exam. This was a spontaneous connection. She was seeing the chemistry in the world around her without him even pointing it out. The biggest moment came a week later. Eris's mother, Ilara's grandmother, was visiting. She was baking a cake, and Ilara was her official taste tester. Eris was reading in the living room when he heard Ilara's voice, loud and clear from the kitchen. "Nana, you have to be careful with the baking soda." Eris put his book down and listened, a smile slowly spreading across his face. "Why is that, my love?" his mother asked, amused. "Because it's not like the salt," Ilara explained, with the authority of a seasoned chemist. "Baking soda is a special powder. When it gets mixed with the wet stuff in the cake and then gets hot in the oven, it makes millions and millions of tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide gas. Those bubbles are what make the cake all soft and fluffy. If you put in too much, too many bubbles will pop and the cake will taste yucky. If you put in too little, there will be no bubbles and the cake will be a flat pancake. It's a very delicate chemical reaction." There was a moment of stunned silence from the kitchen. Then his mother laughed, a sound of pure delight. "Well, I've been baking for 60 years and I never knew I was a chemist. Thank you for the lesson, Professor Ilara." Eris leaned back in his chair, the book forgotten on his lap. He looked around the quiet living room, hearing the happy sounds from the kitchen. The dense academic journals on his coffee table seemed to have lost their power over him. Their complex language felt cold and distant compared to the warm, living understanding his daughter had just demonstrated. He realized this project was no longer a one-way street. He wasn't just giving facts to Ilara. She was giving him a gift in return. She was giving him back the joy, the sheer astonishment that had drawn him to science as a boy. He had been so caught up in the how that he had forgotten the wow. Ilara, with her simple questions and her brilliant connections, was reminding him. The gentle bedtime journey was working. It was building a bridge of understanding between them, and in the process, it was healing a small, tired part of his own soul. The journey had truly begun, and he couldn't wait to see where the next fact would take them. The blue notebook was now more than halfway full. Its pages were a messy, beautiful map of their journey. There were Eris's neat writings, Alara's colorful drawings of oxygen bullies and hero molecules, and even a few smudges from a chocolate chip cookie that had been used to demonstrate how heat changes things. The book itself felt alive, a third member of their special team. The change in Alara was no longer just a relief. It was a source of constant, quiet joy for Eris. She didn't just accept the facts anymore. She played with them. She would come home from school, drop her backpack, and immediately start connecting the dots. "Papa," she'd say, bursting into his study. "We learned about the water cycle today. Evaporation and condensation. But that's just what you said about water molecules getting enough energy to fly away as gas, and then getting cold and huddling back together into liquid, right?" Eris would look up from his computer, a genuine smile replacing his usual look of academic concentration. "Exactly. You've just summarized my entire first-year lecture in 2 sentences. But the real transformation, the one that truly stunned Eris, was happening within himself. For years, his work had felt like a heavy door he had to push open every day. It was about publishing papers, securing grants, and proving his theories to other professors in a language so complex, it felt like a secret code. The beauty of chemistry had been buried under a mountain of pressure and jargon. One evening, he was struggling to write the introduction for a research paper. The words felt like glue. The catalytic efficacy of the substrate under optimized conditions. He read the sentence aloud and groaned. It was dry. It was dead. It had no soul. His eyes drifted from his computer screen to the blue notebook on the corner of his desk, waiting for its nightly use. He thought about how he had explained the same basic concept to Alara just a few nights before. "Think of a catalyst, like a helpful friend at a party," he had told her. "Two people might be too shy to start talking, but if a friend introduces them, they can become best friends. The catalyst is that friend. It helps the reaction happen without getting used up itself. It just likes to help." He looked back at his screen. Catalytic efficacy. It sounded so cold compared to a helpful friend at a party. A strange feeling washed over him. It was a mix of embarrassment and revelation. Had he spent the last 20 years making the most beautiful thing in the universe sound boring? He had been speaking a language that only a few hundred people in the world could truly appreciate, while forgetting the language of wonder that anyone, even a 7-year-old, could understand. He deleted the dry sentence. He took a deep breath and started again, writing not for the stern-faced journal editors, but for Alara. This paper explores a material that acts as a helpful guide, bringing molecules together to create new substances more efficiently. It wasn't the final version, of course, but the ice in his mind had cracked. The words began to flow. This new perspective began to color everything. Walking to the university the next morning, he didn't just see a city. He saw a living chemistry lab. The rust on an old bicycle wasn't just decay. It was a slow, patient reaction between iron, oxygen, and water. The steam rising from a street vendor's cart was a cloud of water molecules dancing with heat energy. He was seeing the world through Alara's eyes now, and it was more vibrant and magical than any complex equation could ever be. The project had become a two-way street. He was teaching her facts, but she was teaching him how to feel again. One afternoon, they were at a park, lying on a blanket and looking at the clouds. The sky was a brilliant, clear blue. "Papa," Alara said, squinting upwards. "Why is the sky blue? Is it painted?" Eris smiled. This was a classic question, one that could be answered with complicated physics about light scattering. But he knew a better way now. "It's because the air is a picky eater," he said, turning on his side to face her. "The air?" Alara asked, giggling. "Air eats?" "Well, the tiny, tiny molecules that make up our air," Eris explained. "Sunlight looks white, but it's actually made of all the colors of the rainbow mixed together. When this white light from the sun travels through all that air to get to our eyes, the air molecules are very picky. They love the color blue. They grab onto the blue light and scatter it. They toss it around everywhere. So, no matter where we look in the sky, we see this scattered blue light. That's why the sky looks blue." Alara's face was a picture of delight. "The air loves blue. So, what happens at sunset? When the sky turns all red and orange, Ah, Eris said, his eyes twinkling. That's the best part. At sunset, the sun is low on the horizon, so the sunlight has to travel through a lot more air to reach us. All that blue light the air loves so much gets scattered away completely before it can get to our eyes. But the other colors, the reds and oranges and pinks, they aren't as tasty to the air molecules. They pass right through and make it to our eyes, giving us that beautiful sunset show. He had just explained Rayleigh scattering to a 7-year-old, and she had understood it completely. He didn't write that fact in the notebook that night. He didn't need to. It was written in the way Alara looked at the sky the next evening, pointing and whispering, "Look, Papa, the air is letting the red and orange through now." This was the real reaction. It wasn't just happening in a lab or in a notebook. It was happening inside both of them. In Alara, a fragile curiosity was being forged into a resilient, lasting understanding. In Eris, the weary academic was being rediscovered, his love for his life's work rekindled by the pure, simple joy of sharing it. He was no longer just a professor. He was a storyteller, a translator of the universe's secrets for his most important audience of one. And in doing so, he was finally remembering the story that had made him fall in love with science in the first place. The journey was changing the traveler, and every night brought a new, wonderful discovery for them both. The end of the journey crept up on them quietly. It was a Thursday evening, just like any other. The house was quiet, and a soft golden evening light was streaming through Alara's window. Eris came in and sat in his usual spot on the edge of her bed. He reached for the blue notebook, but his hand paused. He felt a strange mix of pride and a little sadness, Alara noticed. "What's wrong, Papa?" "Nothing's wrong, my little star," he said, his voice softer than usual. "It's just, look." He picked up the notebook and showed her. The pages were thick and wavy, filled from top to bottom with writing and drawings. He flipped to the very last blank page. "This is it. Tonight is fact number 300. Alara's eyes grew wide. 300? We did 300 of them? She looked at the hefty, well-loved book in his hands as if seeing it for the first time. It was no longer just a notebook. It was a trophy, a record of their adventure. "It feels like we just started yesterday," Eris said, a lump forming in his throat. "Are you ready for the last one?" She nodded, pulling her knees up to her chin, her expression suddenly serious and grown up, as if she understood the importance of this moment. Eris opened the notebook to that final, pristine page. He had thought long and hard about what this last fact should be. It couldn't be the most complex. It couldn't be the most flashy. It had to be the most important. It had to be the one that tied everything together. "Fact number 300, he began, his pen poised. "This one is about the most common yet most special substance on our planet. It's about water." "Water?" Alara asked. "We already know about water. It's wet. It's for drinking." "Ah, but there's a secret about its shape," Eris said, a familiar twinkle in his eye. "You see, every single tiny water molecule is shaped like a V. It has one big, greedy oxygen atom in the middle and 2 small, shy hydrogen atoms stuck to it. Now, because of this shape, the water molecule is a little bit like a tiny magnet." He drew a simple V shape on the page, making the oxygen a frowny face and the hydrogens happy faces. The oxygen side is a bit negative, and the hydrogen sides are a bit positive. And you know what opposites do? They attract, Alara said, remembering a fact about magnets from weeks ago. Exactly. So the oxygen of one water molecule reaches out and holds hands with the hydrogen of another. This special handhold is called a hydrogen bond, and because of this, water molecules are incredibly social. They love to stick together. This is why water forms droplets. It's why some bugs can walk on water. They're standing on all those molecules holding hands tightly. It's why water can carry nutrients up to the top of the tallest trees. It's a team player. He looked at her, making sure she was following. Her gaze was fixed on him, utterly absorbed. "And this," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "is what makes life possible. This simple V-shaped molecule with its need to connect is the reason you and I are here. It's the reason for every river, every ocean, every cloud, and every tear. Everything we've talked about for 299 nights, the smells, the colors, the bubbles, the rust. It all happens in a world shaped by this one, simple, connecting molecule." He finished writing in the notebook. Fact 300. A water molecule is shaped like a V, which makes it stick to other water molecules. This simple act of connecting is what makes life on Earth possible. He showed it to her. They both sat in silence for a moment, looking at the final entry. The journey was complete. The last page was filled. Alara reached out and took the notebook from him. She held its weight in her small hands, running her fingers over the worn cover. She didn't look sad. She looked thoughtful. "Papa," she said, looking up at him. This was the best story ever. Eris felt his eyes grow damp. He blinked quickly. "It was, wasn't it?" "But," Alara began, a familiar, curious glint returning to her eyes. It was the same look she had on night one. "What happens now? What happens if we start another one?" Eris's heart, which had felt a little heavy, suddenly felt as light as a helium balloon. "Another one?" "Yes," she said, her excitement growing. "We could get a green notebook. And we could learn 300 facts about biology, about plants and animals and how my body works. Is that okay?" In that moment, looking at his daughter's face, a face that had once been clouded with fear and was now radiant with fearless curiosity, Dr. Eris Thorne understood the true result of their experiment. The 300 facts were not the destination. They were just the vehicle. The real treasure, the precious thing they had created, wasn't written in the notebook at all. It was the unshakable bond between them. It was the resilient spark of wonder in Alara's mind that no difficult school lesson could ever extinguish. It was the rediscovered joy in his own heart. The gentle bedtime journey was over, but the journey of discovery had just begun. He smiled, a wide, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I think that is a brilliant idea," he said. 300 biology facts. A brand new journey, Alara beamed, hugging the blue notebook to her chest like a cherished friend. Later, as Eris turned off her light and stood in the doorway, he took one last look. The blue notebook was safely back on her bedside table, its job done. Alara was already asleep, a soft smile on her face, probably dreaming of V-shaped molecules or maybe of the biology adventures to come. He walked back to his study, but he didn't sit at his desk. He went to the window and looked out at the night sky. He thought about the invisible vanillin molecules, the busy oxygen bullies, the helpful catalyst friends, and the social water molecules holding hands. He thought about 300 nights of shared wonder. He had started this to cure his daughter's fear, and in the process, she had cured his own weariness. She had reminded him that at the heart of all science, beneath the complex math and the complicated words, lies a simple, powerful force: love. The love for asking questions, the love for the beautiful world around us, and most importantly, the love we share when we take the time to explain it to one another. The final fact, the one he would never write down, was the most important one of all: that patience and love are the universal solvents for fear, and that a journey ended is just the beginning of the next one.